I'm calling this meeting to order of October 12th, 2021 Strategic Planning Committee. I've asked Councilman Mason to give the invocation and pledge. No, I asked you. You didn't say yes, but...
Please prepare yourselves for prayer. Lord, thank you so much for allowing us to gather tonight and make sure that we do the interest that's in the best interest of the parish, and make sure that we use your strength and your guidance to help us through tonight and make sure we make good decisions. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. There are no chairs additions tonight. Roll call, we have, yes, Councilman Ogeron and Councilman Turner absent. Councilman Mason and Councilman Lambert are in attendance. We don't have any public comment. Okay, let's move on to general business. I'd like to welcome the Mr. Ricky Compton. And he will be talking about a proposed ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances pertaining to property maintenance standards.
Okay, good. So earlier last year, the council adopted by resolution the enactment of the International Property Maintenance Code. And through some discussions with our building official, Darren Duplessis, we realized that we needed to adopt it into our Code of Ordinances to give it more teeth, to actually allow the building official, the inspectors, and our code enforcement officers the ability to actually enforce what's in that document. So I'm going to have Darren come up here and answer any questions you may have, but what this is going to do is going to eliminate from our existing Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 8, Dangerous Buildings, as well as Chapter 11, Health and Sanitation, Article 5, Grass and Weeds, and Article 6, Junk or Abandoned Vehicles and White Goods. All of those items are included in the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code and will then be able to be enforced.
So at this point in time, we're limited to enforcement, or no enforcement?
It's not that we're limited, but essentially what we're able to do, I guess it is that we're limited. All we could do is write strongly worded letters. What this will enable us to do is the building official can take more aggressive actions, and not even limited to pulling power from a house that is extremely non-compliant. That is a last resort, but it will enable us to be able to do that based on the property maintenance standards.
So will that be applied throughout to where we're going to have to give permission for energy to put in meters and whatnot now?
Ask that again.
Before, you used to have to get permission from the parish for Entergy to connect your electricity. Is that going to be affected any differently for just your normal?
Yeah, so what you're referring to there is what Ricky had mentioned about last year. That's what we got adopted for the property maintenance for reconnection of the utilities. Mm-hmm. So today, when we get a call for a permit on the occupancy of a structure, we go out and we use this property maintenance. There's some minimum occupancy standards that we have to follow, and that was to use this book, is what we adopted last year. The rest of this book currently is not adopted by ordinance, and it goes into condemnations and the demolition of structures. It goes into minimum electrical requirements, mechanical requirements, fire safety.
That's what I'm saying, and it gives us the ability to enforce it to the extent of pulling a meter.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly.
And does that mean we have to do that through the court system or through lawsuits, or can we do that without? And I know if they...
We can do it without. Of course, there's a process outlined in this book for disconnection of utilities, for condemnations, that sort of thing. There are sections, just like in our ordinance now, it mentions a misdemeanor penalty if it gets to that point. But like Ricky had mentioned, most of the time now, we just send letters and letters and letters. We get a little bit cleaned up, but then the problem just persists. So with this, we'll have a little more stricter guidelines for us to follow, and then we could pursue in the court system if we need.
And my whole thing is not ever wanting to take utilities from any citizen or anybody, even if they're having trouble with their home or anything to that
Right.
extent. I'm talking about people that are blatantly just disregarding the ordinances, and
Right,
you know,
a major
we
thing.
have got to have some ability to
A major
enforce it.
thing we're facing right now is we do not have a blighted property ordinance. So if we get a call that somebody's got junk piled all around their house, we have a white goods ordinance, so we can tell them to move fridges, washers, dryers, that sort of thing. But it's just general junk. We have nothing in our ordinance right now to deal with that. And
What has Ricky been doing? He hasn't.
So that was one major thing that pushed this to try to clean up some things, because right now, if it's not tall grass in a named subdivision, in an approved subdivision, or white goods, we kind of got our hands tied with what we have now. So this will give us a little more teeth to help clean up some of these properties that are in pretty bad shape.
Thank you. Ricky, did you have anything else on this one? Councilman Mason.
You gotta push the button. Thank you.
Councilman Mason.
If you could, can you kind of just walk us through, so let's say I have a blighted property or whatever, can you kind of walk me through the steps of what's going to happen with this new proposed ordinance?
So what happens is they call the call center. The call center puts in a ticket. It goes to our code enforcement department. We send out one of our code enforcement officers, take pictures, see what's going on with the property, identify which items may be an issue. If they're an issue, we document it, take pictures, go back to the office. There's a procedure in here. We send them a notice. These are your violations. Give them a time frame to clean it up. If it's not cleaned up in that time frame, we try to reach out to them again, get in touch with them. If not, it's going to go to the point where we're going to have to give them an injunction to go to court and have a judge rule either a misdemeanor penalty or give them X amount of time to clean it up.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the penalty, it's gonna start $25 a day
Correct.
to not to exceed the $500.
Correct.
Okay. Look, I appreciate, we have been working on this for a long time. The only thing that I have a little sticking point with is with the grass. Is this the same thing as the city has, the ordinance they have, or?
It's a little different. They kind of took bits and pieces of the property maintenance code and adopted parts of older versions of it. But their grass ordinance is throughout the city. It's not just in established subdivisions like we
Yeah.
have here now.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of a difference.
In the reference of the grass, what's your concerns with it? Just so I
Well, I don't have a problem with lots in subdivisions. It's just, the outlying areas, you still have a lot of, ag.
your
and-
rural areas and whatnot.
Well, and you're dealing with, hay seasons and different things, and I just don't want this to get, crossed up in any way.
So
Yeah, I agree with that.
way back when, in a previous life, Councilman Joseph and I worked on a grass cutting overlay in the West Ascension area, and the same concern was there, is that you've got a lot of rural areas, but that aren't necessarily subdivisions, but conceptually, we wanted to make sure that people were maintaining within 150 feet of a residence or 200 feet of we set a standard in there. And so I think as this thing begins to march its way through, we probably need to put some clarification in there that, yes, this isn't just in subdivisions, it's in all parts of the parish, but it's limited to X feet from a primary residence, so that somebody doesn't come in there and say, hey, that guy hasn't mowed his pasture in 2 years. Well, guess what? We're not mowing it either. It's-
Right. And look, especially with with some of the blighted property, we've got, I know I've talked to you quite a few times, Chris Road and a few other ones. We've got to do some of these houses, or, I know you've been sending letters back and forth, but we need to give y'all the tools to get some of this stuff cleaned up, and definitely appreciate y'all bringing this.
No problem. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed ordinance.
Second.
So this item needs to be pushed to the council as an introduction of an ordinance. And what we'll do is continue to look through to see if there's any of those refinements, because I know there's something about the height of grass, and I would say 24 inches is what we've always had. I think we put that in there as that. So those sorts of clarifications, but if you guys push this to the council, Darren and I will continue to work to refine it. But let me just add, Councilman Wagasback sent us an email today asking about Bayou Grand subdivision. I don't want to pretend that this government's going to get so big that we're going to clean up every single property in this parish and we're going to address every single concern. But by adopting this, it does give us a little more leverage, particularly with the hoarder houses and those sorts of things, that we can be a little more aggressive in the enforcement of the code. It's not just white goods and junk cars anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, to reiterate what you are saying, these blighted properties are causing safety hazards, rodents, snakes, but like Councilman Lambert's saying, we do not want to take away from the rural aspects of this parish. So if we have some decent distances there, and possibly even looking at, let's be honest, I mean, you see problems with smells with different situations. You had that guy off of in another parish that was raising hogs and watering his grass with it. We start getting problems like that. We need to, why don't we just go ahead and start looking at this in these? Some type of, at least addressing it to where if it can be an odor within so many feet, even if it's a ridiculous amount, let's start looking at that aspect also. So we have a motion and we have a second.
Do we, Mr. Chair,
Absolutely.
do we need to include these, chapter 6, chapter 11, or y'all gonna put all of?
When we have legal draft the final version of this ordinance, the ordinance will state that we're eliminating those sections and adopting the property maintenance code as followed by the whoever the agency is. But because as that one evolves, when they go to the 2021 or 2022 version, we're going to adopt the latest version. So the language from that code is proprietary. We can't put that document, just like we don't have the building codes in our code of ordinance, it's going to reference that document. So yes, sir, we will address the code of ordinances within the adoption of the ordinance.
Perfect.
Anything else?
So can y'all repeat that motion for me, please?
I'll make a motion to send this to full council for review. I'll make a motion to send this to full council for adoption.
And I'd second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any opposition? In that case, this motion passes on to full council. Moving on. You don't want to have a seat? I can get the next guy up here. General business B, proposed ordinance to amend the code of ordinances pertaining to animal control. The Ricky Compton, Director of Planning and Facilities.
So over the last several months, we have met with a consultant that this council had advised that we get a contract with, the Shelter Planners of America, to start working on our new animal control shelter. And during that process, they let us know of a couple of deficiencies that we could easily address and correct. So the first one is our rules regarding the length of time that we need to impound an animal before we can release it for adoption. So he advised us where we should be. We looked at East Baton Rouge Parish, and we are getting in line with their standards. And what that does is that it enables us to count the day of collection as one of the days of impoundment, and we can count weekends. We no longer have to keep these animals for an extended period of time. So, again, we are getting in line with what EVR does. It allows us to lower the number of days that we're keeping animals in the center and increase our turnover rate. Ms. Reagan Daniel is here from Kara's house if y'all have any questions. But again, Shelter Planners of America said we should do it, and they wholeheartedly agreed. So this is what this is.
Councilman Mason?
I was gonna say, I was just about to ask if Reagan was okay with it. If Reagan agrees, I'm all for it too. I'm good with that. Thank you.
Councilman Lambert?
Just want to let you know, my dog is back home. After 3-4 days, he finally made it back. I have one here with,
I have a beagle, so I understand.
yeah, well, the whole family was turned upside down, but our rescue made it back home.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for your help too.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm just looking through, what are the number of days right now? What is it taking now for an adoption to turn over?
So currently, we hold for 5 business days. And if there's a holiday, sometimes it's 8-9 days before this cat or dog can go up for adoption, rescue. Or even if it's an aggressive animal, we still have to hold it 8 to 9 days. So this would, if an animal is microchipped, has a tag and a collar with a name and a number, if it's the owner's able to be identified, we will hold it for 5 days, including day of intake. Instead of 5 business days, it will be 5 days. So if it's a Monday, we hold it till Friday. If it is not identified, so if it does not have a microchip, doesn't have a tag on it, any way for us to know who the owner is, we hold it for 3 days. So this allows us to majorly move animals out of the system faster and not using up resources, space, time, you know. And it still gives, 3 days is still, I mean, you know, if your animal's missing, you're looking for it.
Sure.
You know, you have 3 days is plenty of time to email us, Facebook message us, call us, post on Lost Pets of Ascension, something, come by to look for your animal. So we feel like 3 days is fair. And we're hoping that this will encourage people to have their animals microchipped or have tags on them with a name and number for the owner to be able to be reached.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
And the second item that we're looking at tonight is our tag fees. The other item that Shelters of America said is we're just simply not collecting enough money. Again, we looked at EBR, and the price for an animal that has been fixed is $10, and if the dog or cat has not been fixed, it's $20. So we're simply getting in line with EBR and raising our fees to, again, bring in some more dollars to support animal welfare.
How much are we charging right now?
$5 and $10.
Okay.
Well, I'll make that motion,
Second.
Mr. Chair.
Any opposition? That motion passes.
Motion to
Thank
adjourn.
you. Second.
Adjourn. Good meeting.